Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Critical Draw. I'm Matt Garbutt, cartoonist working in animation, and with me, as usual, is
Hi, I'm Anton. I'm here, as usual. I am a game director at Outland Entertainment, senior gaming journalist over at Comic Con and other fun sources where you get your nerdy media and general storyteller and doer of things. And we are here today with Critical Draw. It's going to be a fun-filled Sunday afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. We are going to get to it.
we are indeed. So if you are new, and even if you're not, we'll just go over what we do here. So basically, we will roll some dice. Well, Anton will roll some dice, as you can see in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Those dice will give us. First, we'll roll a d20 on our species roll table here. On the left, we've got dwarf, elf, human, dragonborn, gnome, goblin, half-orc, tiefling, halfling, genasi, Goliath, tabaxi, kobold, kenku, turtle, heragon, githyanki, owlin, grung, and dealer's choice, which means we'll either take a suggestion from the chat or Anton will pick. Anton, if you want to go through the class roll table.
I will. I just want to say hi to Kova. Kova's in the chat.
Hello, Covert.
All right, so class roll table, we've got barbarian, bard, cleric, druid, fighter, monk, paladin, ranger, rogue, sorcerer, warlock, wizard, artificer, samurai, summoner, alchemist, spellblade, swashbuckler, necromancer, and dealer's choice. Which again, we'll either throw it to chat and let you guys come up with something, or we will just ponder and wander and come up with something ourselves, on our own, on ourselves, on our own. I think that sounds better. So I'm gonna get to rolling. This will be our species roll for the day. Let's see what we get. In the tray would be beneficial. We got a 5. So 5 is a gnome.
Nice.
So that'll be cool. So we know we've got a gnome, and let's see what our class will be. 15. So 15 is a summoner. So we've got a gnome summoner. Now there is a tertiary chart that we play around with from time to time, and that typically indicates a little personality trait or sort of the vibe of the creature in question. So I'm going to go ahead and roll on that real quick, and let's see if we get a little jumping off point from that.
And I will bring that up.
Oh, so we rolled. It's cruel again. Now we rolled cruel last week, so I think we should do a mulligan and roll that once more and see if we get something a little different.
Yeah,
What do
go
you say?
for it.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so 3 loyal. So a loyal gnomish summoner is what we are working with this week.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so first I think we need to kind of establish what kind of gnome we're dealing with. Now there's a couple of varieties, right? So we've got like your so Snarfeblin, which are your deep gnome, right? And then we've got like a tinker gnome. We've got what is just sort of your base fun rock gnome, right? There's the forest gnomes, which I don't know. I'm leaning kind of towards a foresty gnome vibe. Um,
Yeah, we can do
because
that.
I'm feeling like a. Oh man, do you remember? Oh man, back in the day, there was this awesome. I have an art book for it too somewhere. But back in the day, there was this awesome cartoon called David the Gnome.
I thought you was gonna say that thing used to creep me out.
Did it really?
Yeah, because I was always like, this just it doesn't seem like I think it was Swedish maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Uh, but yeah, it seemed odd for me because being a little kid, I loved
Right.
Ghostbusters, Turtles, and that. And then there's like, oh, I get it that he's a gnome, but it's basically an old man and his wife gardening. It felt like, and
I mean,
just how
that's
soft
really what it
spoken,
was.
just how soft spoken he was. I just found it really weird as a kid. Like I can see like the artist what they were doing, and it's got a good
Right.
message. Now back then I was just like, what is this creepy old man gnome show about? And then that ended.
Yeah, it has a pretty twisty ending, which is kind of funny. I think I liked him because he looked like a little garden gnome, um, and I thought that was kind of rad. And then I somehow came upon a bunch of books that had art that looked very much like the David the Gnome art. Um, and I feel like that it's the same dude that did like fairy books, like books with like the different fairy creatures and stuff in it. It was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and those were super super cool. And I remember like looking at the fairy gnome art and being like, oh man, these guys rule. Like they just had like the little hats and sort of little round bodies. And they weren't as creepy as like the little gnomes that you would see outside of people's houses. Because sometimes those lawn ornaments freaked me out, man. But it's the Ghostbusters, Goosebumps, any Saturday morning cartoon, they would take any excuse to bring lawn gnomes to life and have them menace, whoever the protagonist was in some like really meaningfully terrifying way. Um,
Yeah, I did. I last year I made a book called the PEC, which is the Paranormal Entity Containment Control Field Guide, and
yeah,
I have got a gnome in there. I went the route that basically garden gnomes came about because they were used to ward off gnomes. So if you put garden gnomes in your garden, the feral gnomes would think, this is somebody else's turf, and they'll either start a little fight or they'd normally just leave them be. But I had the fully hairy little bodies, and it will go up into a tip, which you can buy a copy on
that's
my
insane.
Ko-fi. Volume
That's
two
I mean
will
that's
be out this year.
and you guys can find that on Matt's Kofi if you want to pick that up. Um, Always a good time. I just they creeped me out. I remember liking the David the Gnome stuff because I thought the concept of riding around on a fox was super cool, and I liked the Smurfs to a degree, but there was something about them that was like unsettling to me. Um, so like the David and Swift and his wife and their little woodland friends and him being like a little like country doctor guy, like a hillside doctor gnome was kind of rad. I thought that was cool.
Was that
And
what
then
he
I just
did?
sort of yeah, yeah, he was like a healer. He was like a medicine person. He
That
did
makes
he did like natural remedies and stuff. Which I thought was kind of rad. I mean, he's a cleric, really, like of anything.
see
Maybe an
now
alchemist,
that to me makes the ending even more effed up. Because if his friends are
right?
like, Don't go, David. You're our only hope of getting healed." It's like, no, no,
And then
forest friend.
everyone.
We are going. We have chosen to die and turn to trees now.
I mean, I, I mean, sometimes if you're a creature of nature, that's just sort of how that goes, right? I mean, you're kind of adherent to the rules that bring you to a place or remove you from it. You're bound by your lore. Oh, the beard is already just unhinged. Look at this little fella.
Yeah, I think I might want to make it a bit more wild. But I'm just riffing off the prompts. So if we can get some what his personality is going to be like.
Well, if he's loyal, then we know, who is he loyal to? I guess that's the question. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck he summons,
So
right?
he could
So
still
what
be
is
he could still be evil.
right? Exactly. He can still very much be a horrifying monster of an entity. It's just we just know that he's loyal to something. So, like that in of itself is really unnerving. Um, I mean, because we're kind of on a villain riff. If what okay, this is messed up. I'm gonna go with it. So like, here we go. This is critical draw, people. This is what you showed up for. So hear me out. I'm just gonna get it out. So like what happens if farmers in an area are growing crops, whether it be like tobacco or grains or vegetables or what have you, and the local traders union doesn't want the smaller farmers to kind of be out there in the markets selling the products that they're growing themselves, right? They want to kind of control the prices and the import exports of what's going on in certain towns and cities and kingdoms. So they hire this little gnome who can summon, like everything that's detrimental to crops, right? So like weevils and aphids and crows and just anything that would like decimate somebody's crops or garden so that whoever works for them, whoever the gnome works for essentially can control the market. So it's like a, yeah, very much like a plague summoner, or just sort of like famine, right? So
I
very much.
I like that idea, but with them kind of manipulating the gnome. So because I'm picturing this gnome, but that's naked. He
Perfect.
he is mental. They are paying him in like berries or something weird like that. He knows if he summons all this shit to destroy these crops or whatever, he'll be getting a
Right.
meal out of it. So he's like just like a little chaos agent.
It's just 100% just just pure chaotic. No, not even chaotic neutral, lawful chaotic, right? Just 100% chaotic. And his whole shtick is just like he has mastered the ability to summon and communicate with these like these really invasive, kind of messed up creatures that feed upon, you know vegetation, feed upon like, I don't know if it goes as far as livestock. I mean, it could. I could go there, but basically anything agricultural. This this gnome can summon creatures to kind of devour and sort of corrupt those crops so that they're really not usable by somebody who just is either A, trying to feed their family, or like B, using them in like the free market. Because then it becomes, I mean, that's like horribly manipulative too, because then whoever's controlling this gnome, or whoever this gnome sort of works for, is then just sort of sitting back, and they can either use it as an extortion tactic, like making these smaller farms pay them more money, and if they don't, completely sort of destroying their livelihood, or it can kind of come in and take over whatever the sharecropping is for the area. Like, oh, these people can't grow their corn, so they're going to lose their farm, and then they come in and buy the land for cheaper. Like, it really, it's goofy on the surface, but super sinister once you start getting to the root of it.
I think as
Um,
well you've got two hooks there that you could use. You can be either like we know this guy is fucking up our crops and stuff. Actually, yeah. Well, it could be two hooks, or it turns into two, depending on what the party does. Because you can either go in there to try and stop this thing, and depending on what party you have, they might side with the person that's doing the bad deeds. They lose
right.
control of the gnome. It gets out of hand, and then they
Yeah,
have to
and
take
then
it out.
well, it's just. But I mean, is it strong enough that you couldn't take it out? Like, if they lost control of the gnome for whatever purpose, like then the gnome just goes off on its own and is like wandering the countryside or forests or wherever it's deployed in, just sowing sort of pestilence as it goes, right? Just sort of seeding this plague that devours, instead of a swarm of locusts, it's just this little gnome wanders into town, and everybody's like, oh, that's a gnome, okay. And then and then the next thing they know, it's like, the Wilsons' farm is being devoured by just like these giant locusts, or the
Yeah,
entire lake that we fish out of, all the algae and stuff in the lake has been completely consumed by these like weird water worms. Where did they come from? The gnomes just like happily wandering along, like
Yeah,
not realizing.
I see is like people who that use this gnome have kind of been told about it. Like, if you leave some honeysuckle bread or whatever in the right place, this gnome might turn up.
I love that.
Feed it a maximum of 5 times. If you keep on feeding it after that, it's going to get out of control. It will move on by itself.
Then it's stuck. Like you're stuck with it in that area, and there's
Yeah,
not really a way.
because
Like you're perfect.
because when it's getting fed, it's gaining more power, and the things
Right.
it's summoning just become worse and worse.
Oh man, I really like it. Okay, yeah, maybe it's not even about control then at that point. It's sort of just this little engine of chaos, right? So you just sort of let it go, right? You prepare what maybe the food that it really enjoys is some like very specific recipe, and if you can make that thing, like it will smell it from miles and miles away or whatever, and then just kind of show up
Yeah,
wherever that thing has been left, and then it's that civilization's problem until they can figure out how to get rid of it. It just becomes sort of a nuisance. Um, 'Cause that's far more destructive. I love that. I
yeah,
also like the idea of having like leveled up summons, not so much based on the gnome's level as based on how long the gnome is in a given area.
yeah, and how well fed it is. Like, there could even be a certain food recipe you could feed it that like weakens it, and that kind of like forces it to move on.
Yeah, what if it really doesn't, like, I don't know, like Brussels sprouts or something? I mean, it doesn't have to be something that mundane, but it could be. It could literally be something as simple as like, you spray the area with something that smells like broccoli, or just something it's not a fan of, and it's just like, oh no, I don't want that, and it just moves on. That's how
Yeah,
you get it to move on. Is just sort of leaving the thing it doesn't like. And so then oh, this is fun. So then you have these entire small villages that have seen the horrors of this creature
Colin.
that start having like festival, right? They have like the beat festival. So they have like an entire like maybe they create like a cultural holiday in this little village that's based around like whatever thing this little gnome hates. And they have a whole festival for it where they like make food out of it, make drink out of it. Maybe nobody even likes it, right? Or maybe they've learned to like it. But whatever it is, they like have a whole little festival that's based around this thing, so to try to like ward off the gnome's arrival, right? And they
Yeah,
maybe even some places forget, like, why do we even have a beat festival? Well, back in my day, this little gnome showed up. He's a harbinger of the apocalypse,
yeah,
and he brought famine in his wake. And your grandmother hit him in the face with a beat, and he was like, "Oh no, I won't eat that," and left. And that's how the grandmother and I met. It's like, what? What are you talking about? Just
e-
really
each cycle and instance, that food changes though.
100%. 100%. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Uh, I'm writing notes. This is fantastic. Oh, everybody who's joining us, we are on episode 2 of Critical Draw. Matt and I are coming up with creatures based on a D20 roll. And then, sort of over the course of Matt drawing this, we are spinning stories to kind of create what this thing is. Currently, we have a gnomish summoner, um, who has sort of become the harbinger of doom, in an agricultural sense. Um, he summons creatures that feed upon all sorts of plant life, kind of ruining crops wherever he goes. Um, he not necessarily evil as much as destructive. Um, I don't know about all four. So Kova says the four horsemen of the apocalypse are all gnomes. I don't know if they're all gnomes, but I definitely think this one is for sure a gnome. But there might be others. I don't know. This thing is. I mean, what a dangerous little creature. Absolutely love it. Um, I like this gnome. He's gonna be a ton of fun. Uh, we've got uh, bots and magic are raiding in with a party of 8, so that's cool.
Oh, nice.
Thank
Thank you
you,
very much. Yes,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much for that. I
Thanks for the
appreciate
raid.
that. We have a hi everybody who is joining us. We have a gnome summoner coming online. Uh, wow, wow, just the harbinger of doom. So this gnome summoner actually, as he moves from town to town, all of the tiny creatures that he summons exclusively feed on crops, sort of decimating food sources for those villages. And so, um, the gnome itself is not necessarily evil, but it definitely does create quite a bit of destruction. Any name suggestions? Anybody have a suggestion for what we name this little gnomish summoner? Drop it in the comments, and we will sift through those and see which one fits it best. I'm getting ready to start rolling up its stats here in a second. I like Colin. Kova suggests Colin. I think Colin is fun. So we might go with Colin, depending on the other suggestions that come through. So as the gnome is around for longer, the more days that I think it's got to be a nocturnal diner cycle, right? So it's got to be the longer that a gnome is in a given area, the more dangerous the creatures it summons become. So at first it's just like probably flies, right, or some sort of burrowing worm, something that when it touches a flowering plant, it like wilts it, or it starts to eat on fruit or lay eggs in fruit. Day two, you're probably going to get into like burrowing creatures, right? Something like a mole, or some sort of really invasive, segmented creature, like a snake kind of thing, that rips up roots. But
I
like the longer it's there, go ahead.
I think like yeah, but these are like tend to be dire versions of those creatures. So like a dire mole would be like the size of a dog.
Right. And I don't even think the creatures themselves are like, I don't think any of this is inherently evil in of itself. It's just destructive, right? It's just doing what it does, which is feeding. So it's destroying crop, and it's feeding on whatever's out there, and kind of grinding that down. It's like a naturally destructive force, which I think is a ton of fun. Um, it's also just messy, because then you're dealing with the whoever's living in those areas is now having to deal with not only figuring out how to appease the gnome or get it to go away, which isn't something as nefarious as like, oh, give me your firstborn, because it doesn't care. It doesn't want that. It's not here to see you suffer. It's exploring your town, you know. Yeah, I think Kova's saying it's like wildfire or a tornado. I think 100%. I think it's very much just a sort of a force of destruction, like a natural disaster. So I like that. So we got like dire mole. We've got like some sort of advanced locust type thing. Let's see. We got. Uh,
I would say as well that it will not outright attack. Even when attacked, it will summon creatures to attack the party. But this little gnome, I would say, is invulnerable.
yeah, I want to do the thing. Remember the fish from one of the campaigns way far back, where I had a fish that had a ring of regeneration around one of its ribs,
I
and
do
so it
not
made the
remember that.
fish. Okay, it was in one of your packs. One of you guys had it. It essentially made the fish constantly regrow, so you guys had like a never-ending food source. It was boring. It
Yes,
was like
I do
same.
remember that.
Yeah, so I kind of want the gnome to have either a curse, or some sort of like item that is just part of its body, like embedded within its bones somewhere, or that it's eaten and it just kind of slipped through an intestine or something, um, and it just keeps this thing alive, right? Or we could go the exact opposite direction. We don't give a reason why the thing's eternal. which just is just some sort of strange twist of fate. This gnome is just this immortal thing. Um,
Okay, this is just before anyone jumps to any conclusions. I'm thinking about putting him riding a mole, a dire mole,
okay,
and I'm just realizing this can kind of look a bit iffy.
a little bit, a little bit. Um, Kova asked, "How the frick do you do this without an undersketch?"
This is the undersketch.
So you are going to go back in and ink over it. Yeah, Matt just does super detailed undersketches. Oh,
Like
now.
I suppose this is like the least kind of detail I'm doing on the mole right now. I'll just get the shapes in. I always feel like if I think about it too much, uh, I'll procrastinate on it and won't get anything. So I just jump straight in, and then if something doesn't work, redo it. Like I'm
I was
thinking about
really
getting rid
hoping
of
that
this mole already, but
I was hoping that would be the shape you'd go with the mole's arms. I really like it. Oh, it's so much fun. Does a dire mole have three eyes? What is that?
oh, absolutely.
All right.
But this one glows like a little miner's hat torch.
Let me add that to my notes. See, what you get though is if you join our Discord, the Critical Draw Discord, you will actually be able to find the stats, fully rendered stats for these creatures and NPCs that we're creating, and be able to drop them into your home games. Last week we had a summoner, um, and that came together very nicely, I think, and is now over on the Discord. So
Do you want to drop that link?
yeah, I'm grabbing it right now. Grabbing the critical draw link. Do, 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 do. Doing this weird theme song for who knows what reason. There's the link if you guys want to join our Discord server. We've got the videos up that are in there from episode one. We've also got the character sheet and the art ready to roll in those respected channels. Um, and then anybody that joins, we will happily have fun conversations throughout the week leading up to our next episode. And we're going to try to do this weekly. There might be a week here or there with holidays or whatnot that we might be off, but for the most part, we're going to try to keep it going because it's fun. It's a chance for Matt and I to hang out and create really, really random things for you to enjoy. Snow, what is? Oh God, he's so weird. I love him. Why is he dirty? He's so dirty. Look at his little feet. I thought his little feet are dirty.
He is
Ah,
100% butt ass naked the whole time.
yeah, I see it. And it's just wandering around. And, the majority of the bits that would be you know cause people to clutch their pearls are of course covered up by his natural sort of sort of caking of filth and, and his unkempt beard. Um, yeah, he's just having a good time. He's just exploring the world. This little guy.
Yeah,
Oh, Escova. I 100% remember you. Um, I do. 5 years later, you're in 4 games. That's fantastic. It's always great to hear stories of people who have come to gaming. I personally, I've been rolling dice for the majority of my life at this point. And it is my favorite hobby, my favorite pastime. I I have a multitude of books out that I'm working on. I actually turned in a manuscript today for the next Beasts and Botanicals, which is a cottage core meets eldritch horror. Um, seed settings essentially. Our volume one was the Witches of Erusis, which allows you to join Baba Yaga's coven, or a coven that's similar to Baba Yaga, and raise your own giant chicken from puppy-sized chicken to giant chicken, and then eventually learn how to convert it into your own chicken walking hut. It also has like how to make magical bread from the wheat that you feed the chickens, and the different magical sort of rites that the witches use. That's volume one. Volume two is the Village in the Grasslands, and that one is about sparrow people who live in these hanging basket houses that hang off the side of these giant, like colossal, shaggy beasts. They're like sort of like hairy yaks that wander through this giant sea of grass. And underneath the sea of grass is a dead god who whispers all sorts of strangeness. And so there's a lot of like interesting interplay there. And those today I turned in the third manuscript. Um, my artist Anne Marie on that. She's fantastic. Um, this one's about bat people and a psychopomp, someone who an entity, an eldritch entity that shepherds spirits from the land of the living to the land of the dead. So there's a lot of cool stuff that happens in there. And then I'm also the creator of the Outer Seas, which is a hydropunk setting, and we have quite a few books out for that as well. And it is it's a ton of good, ton of fun. I'm really enjoying that. Um, and then I'm the editor in chief for a sword and sorcery magazine that we have game and content in, and also a ton of short stories, sword and sorcery short stories from all sorts of people, really talented authors who work in comics and television, and people whose names you probably would know and recognize from those various media sources. Um, so yeah, it's been fun, kind of creating all of this stuff. Uh, I'm having a blast. I will drop a link to some of that down below if you guys want to check it out. There is quite a lot to see for sure. Do, do, do. This is the sound of getting a link. The do do do. Yeah, man, this is really coming together. I'm loving what you're doing here, man.
And you're. And like I said, I work as in animation. Uh, and we did a show called Milo, which was a preschool show about cat doing jobs. Uh, Working on some other stuff. Two shows that I've come up with, which one is a fantasy based thing that I've been working on in my spare time for years, uh, called Final Quest, and then another show which is going to be a horror show called My Creepy Road Trip. We've had like Warner Brothers, Nickelodeon stuff, Netflix interested, so hopefully something will happen with that sooner rather than later. I also do comics. Got quite a few on my. You can check out my coffee page. A few little ones that I just had a funny idea, so I got them out there. Like Dungeon of Oddities. It's about this guy called Timble Squibs goes into this dungeon called the Dungeon of Oddities, and has a misfortunate encounter with the like the Walmart greeter of the dungeon. I just had a funny like 4 panel idea for a little comic, and it turned into like a little 16 pager, as well as some other horror stuff. Me and Anton also have got a book called 3 Panel Horror, which is a collection of horror stories all told in 3 panels.
And it's quite good, if I say so myself. I dropped Matt's link tree to anybody who's watching here as well. So the link before that is just sort of a. I got a storefront in there with a bunch of D&D stuff, all of my Autumn Tides, which I think we're up to volume 7, the first 2 volumes of Beasts and Botanicals, the mega mega adventure for Outer Seas, Clawing Chaos, which is a blast. Um, and then Black Coral Citadel, which is the new adventure module that's there, and then Valcarter's Guide to Merfolk, which is 32 new mer creatures, as well as some new spells and eldritch entities, all set in the Outer Seas setting, which we have a really cool core book coming next year for that one, like a big old giant core book. So that'll be a ton of fun. And then also link to Critical Draw, just in case you guys forget that link. You can go ahead and add that to your favorites so you can come back and watch us week after week. I also, for Mad Cave Studios, who makes some amazing comics, I worked on an adventure for the comic When the Blood is Dried. It is a fun, just little one shot for everybody to kind of play based on the stuff that happens in the comics. I do some work with Mad Cave. I have some stuff I can't talk about quite yet. I can say that I am working with them on some really cool stuff, but there is some stuff coming there very soon. We'll be able to sort of announce that as we get deeper into convention season. Those guys make some of the coolest books in the world. All of them. Mad Cave, they have two imprints, Maverick and Paper Cuts, and they're just phenomenal. So if you guys are looking for some cool books out there that aren't necessarily penned by the two of us, um, by all means, I suggest getting out there and checking out some of the stuff from Mad Cave. They're super rad. Um, and then Matt, geez, this looks amazing. What are these little gremlins? Like the one under its hat, and the one behind it, and the one in its beard. I feel like I feel like those things have to grow from rot, right? That has to be like the most dangerous thing that it can summon.
Yeah,
Is whatever that.
I picture these are all inside of him, kind of thing.
Okay.
So that's that. So I think that is kind of done for the rough. So if we go, I'll
Okay.
start inking it, and if you go over what we've got so far.
Yeah, so far we've got a gnome who's a summoner, and he's fiercely loyal to an organization or entity we've yet to establish. This gnome is indestructible, impervious, and otherwise unable to be destroyed. The gnome will show up to a given area once its preferred food has either purposefully been left there or an agent wishing to sow sort of famine and pestilence has left that food there. So then the gnome shows up in a quiet little hamlet or a riverside kingdom or something, and starts to summon these little creatures. Right? It starts as like locusts or fighting flies, aphids, worms. Starts destroying and consuming crop, and then the longer the gnome is there, the stronger it gets. It's the stronger its summonings become, and so the things that it summons really just becomes like dire gnomes and sort of worms that trail slime acid behind them and kind of weird any plants that they touch, and sort of little biting inchworms and giant flies and these horrific little hobgoblin looking things. What are these little things are nasty. We got to figure out what those are. Those look like a ton of fun. So all these little creatures sort of oh, thanks for the raid. Thanks for the raid.
Welcome.
I'm glad. Welcome. So we're with this critical draw for everybody who's joining us. Matt and I are creating new little creatures, and we will provide stats to add them to your game. As we create these little creatures, we're kind of spinning the story of what it is, kind of figuring out what its origin is. Right now, we have a summoner gnome who is sort of this harbinger of pestilence, destruction. Gnome being indestructible, but the little creature, anytime this gnome shows up in a town, it sort of over the course of a couple of days can turn entire hillsides covered in lives, not livestock, but in entire hillsides covered like wheat and grain. All of your natural produce in an area is just gone, right? Because this gnome just sort of summons these horrible creatures. Now, the gnome itself can't be destroyed, but if you can figure out what food it hates the most, whether that's like a particular beet stew or maybe a certain type of fermented tofu or something, then the gnome will, realizing that it doesn't have anything to eat other than that, will just move on and take this sort of vermin plague that it can summon with it. But you can't, if you don't figure that out, everything's gone, right? All of your wheat's gone, all of your corn's gone, all of your fruit gone because this diabolical little gnome who really doesn't mean any harm. He's just sort of this engine of natural destruction. It just continually keeps summoning these horrible creatures that are feeding upon all of the food producing plants in an area. And it can leave entire regions barren if they can't figure out how to make this thing leave. Which then, of course, leads to once they finally figure it out, you've got entire towns that are celebrating, pickled beans because maybe that's what the gnome doesn't like to eat. So this entire town now has a festival based around pickled beans and rotten beets because that was the thing that saved them from this little pestilence bringing gnome. Um, so he is a little engine of destruction, um, but kind of an unwitting agent of chaos, if you will. And we are about to start rolling his stats, so I'm gonna go ahead and do some dice rolls. All right, so we got 9. First roll. We're doing 4d6, drop the lowest. 15 on the next one. 16 on the next one. It's pretty hardy stats for a little guy. 10 up next. 10 again. And one more. Let's see what we got for the last roll. 10 again. All right. So in total, the stats for this little gnome are going to be 9, 15, 16, 10, 10, and 10. We know they're going to be a summoner, so they'll have the ability to summon these creatures. But unlike a traditional summoner, the longer that they're in an area, the more powerful the creatures they summon can become. So typically every 24-hour cycle, their summons get stronger and stronger, meaning the longer that they're in a given space, the creatures that are there become more and more dangerous, doing more and more damage. So, if an adventuring party has decided to stay at a local inn or is camped out near a local farm, if they're there a day or two, they could really start running into some very dangerous encounters from this little creature. I'm super interested in this worm that you have around his arm because I feel like that thing is just gonna really mess some stuff up, right? It's gonna leave this trail of sort of acidic goo in its wake, and it just burns through the roots of any fruit-bearing trees. And then those trees, of course, with their roots burned through, are just going to start toppling over and causing all sorts of undue destruction.
Yeah.
Um,
I see it as kind of like a plant as well. So like, he'll kind of just put his arm down, and the worm will into the soil and start fucking up the vegetation that way.
I like it a lot. I like it a whole lot. And maybe he could throw the worm as sort of a little, like a ranged spell attack, just hurl it at things. Although, if he's not doing a lot of destruction, maybe he's just the creature itself wanders away from him and does some damage. I like it. And because I don't think, I keep going back to it. I don't think the gnome knows that it's doing anything wrong. Even if you explain to it that it's like causing construction or causing destruction, it's just sort of like, okay, well, what do you got to eat? And it just, I think because then that gets into a space where they're trying to find a food to placate it, right? So then everybody's having like banking competitions, or they're trying to, they're going all over town trying to figure out who's got a recipe in their recipe book, handed down from somebody's nan that teaches them the secret recipe to make the thing the gnome hates the most. Um,
I
because
would
then that
I would
gets you,
say the worm is non-verbal.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Did I say the worm or the gnome? I meant the
You said
gnome.
the worm. You
I
said
meant
the
the
gnome
gnome.
is non.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
He can understand language, but he does not communicate. He just kind of like does what he does. just
wanders about looking for food.
yeah. So it's really got to be. I like the way you got to combat this. Is more investigating, figuring out the story. Because, like you said, if they don't figure it out and the gnome just decimates all the vegetation and moves on, the DM can then bring this back later on because it can be just like a nice little event that's happening while they're traveling through villages and
Right.
stuff. Because
It's
you
just
can,
like, oh well, we could figure out the recipe, so the gnome did its just, or the party could come across a town that's already been
I was gonna say
decimated by this.
you can pepper this in wherever you want, like set it up a few sessions beforehand in some different towns. Keep building it up, like what has been happening to this countryside, and then you find the gnome in the next town.
I love it. I love it. That's a ton of fun. And that, I mean, it also gives sort of some fun. You always get those players who like to collect stuff, right? So I've been running games since literally the majority of my life, since I've had conscious thought. I can't remember a time in my life, even as a child, that I wasn't running some form of tabletop RPG. And there's always going to be players who love to collect something, right? Right now, one of the games that I run, there's a character who likes to collect little wooden figures that I've peppered throughout the game. Another game that we have got a character who collects decorative bowls. There's a noodle vendor who does collectible bowls. They have different little like paintings on the side of them, and there's a character who will not part with those bowls. Has gone to war to not part with those bowls. Um, the noodle bowl collector. So that sort of thing. Uh, that I could easily see somebody collecting recipes, right? And so you've got all these recipe pages that you've collected through your adventures, and you're just trying to make the thing that the gnome won't like, so that it leaves the town. And then that sort of that concept of mystery and non-combat solution gives a ton of fun story element for your storyteller, right? I mean, that's a different way to go about this sort of catastrophe encounter, because typically you're going to get a situation where it's like, oh, the Leviathan rises from the sea, does untoward damage. We've got to, break down its hit points or find a spear that will take it out and break through its armor. Something's combat related, but this really leans more into allowing your party to explore the space, and I think that's really important. I mean, as players, you want the player to have their maximum amount of fun and really kind of live in their characters and get into that headspace. So giving the players the opportunity to explore in that space, and really kind of like make their nature rolls, make their history checks, kind of start interviewing different people in towns. They start asking people about the gnome who maybe have never heard of it. And they're like, what are you talking about? But the question starts getting asked every time they go somewhere.
I was
And you
gonna say
create this really fun,
I like the idea as
you
well.
create,
Like you hide it, the fact that it's a gnome, so you're just saying like, oh, all these fucking beasts, like dying moles, and all this pestilence. It's kind of building up kind of a demonic thought in your players' heads. But then when you finally find what's causing it, it'll kind of throw you off. It's like it's just a little gnome.
it's just who's almost something that could be ignored, right? And from the reports of like vast kingdoms who've had to wall off from the outside village that sort of supports them, and they're living, on meager meals from their agricultural stores. This little thing is causing just this great deal of damage, um, and probably going unnoticed, which speaks to the nature of it, I think, as well,
Absolutely,
right? Because the smallest things typically bring down the biggest things.
absolutely.
So I really like. Oh, his hands are so grubby. He's got he has mushrooms growing out of his armpits. Fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
What a good time. What does just a little wooden boy a Matt mean?
Okay, so I got Cova into D&D, and now she's returned the favour by inviting me to this game that we play every 2 weeks. Doing Curse of Strahd, but we're playing. We're allowed to use Grim Hollow content, so I picked the Welshkin race, which is basically living puppets.
Right.
They were swapped out at birth by Fae. Uh, so then obviously the families soon realise that the kid's not aging and normally kick them out. And I also liked the Highwayman subclass and the Rogue, so I've got a little, basically Highwayman Pinocchio with a revolver and a rapier who rides on a giant dog.
Well,
and
that is a ton of.
and I get to cast Fairy Glamour once a day for an hour to,
Yeah.
and I appear to be the boy that I replaced. So I was hiding the fact that I was a little wooden boy for ages by saying that and acting like a little child. So I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was a bit scared there." And then when the gig was up, I just went like Cockney, got the gun out. I was like, "Come on, lad, put it down."
That's so rad. That's a ton of fun.
It was I think my favourite moment so far is we was trying to interrogate someone who's in stockades in the town centre, and so I said, right, I'm gonna try and make him think I'm doing what's it called, Russian roulette. So I take all the
Oh
bullets
yeah.
out, and I pretend to put one bullet back in, and I rolled a natural one, so the bullet went back into the chamber. So while Cova's character was talking to the front, I went behind and I firmly inserted the barrel into the butt cheeks and said, "If you don't answer the question, I'm pulling the trigger." Because in character, he thinks the gun's not loaded. So we said, right, every time I pull the trigger or roll the d6, if it's a 1, that's the one with the bullet. So he doesn't answer a question because I think, generally, I think the character did not have any actual information that he could give us. So he doesn't.
Right.
So he doesn't answer. First roll, 1. Shot him up the
Wow.
arse, out of the forehead. But we managed to say he was turned into a vampire, and that's why his head exploded because of the sun.
Ah, well, that works.
We got away with it. It's a lot of fun, that campaign, because we're just being proper chaos gremlins.
Oh man, I'm getting a warning light on my laptop that it's got a low battery, so I'm gonna have to go grab the power cord real quick. But Matt is gonna hang out with you and tell you what we've done so far while I'm doing that.
Okay, yeah. So last week, bear with me. I will get him up if he's in. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. It's not there. 1 second. I will quickly grab. Ignore that pop up. I should have thought about this beforehand and got the file open, so I could so we could show you last week's one. So last week we made Worgan, who was a sorceress elf, and he was cruel. So he ended up being this just crazy, like he's a rich kid, crash landed in
He was evil
a jungle.
Tarzan.
Okay, evil Tarzan. Anton's back. He can tell you more about it. He's better with the words than I.
Oh no, it's fine. He was an evil Tarzan. I mean, that's essentially what we came up with. We figured out last week that there was, what would we do? We rolled sorcerer and an elf and cruel. Right, those were our three prompts. And so we figured out that it would be kind of neat to explore it in sort of slightly different way. what ended up happening is we created this elven. He's sort of this heir to a giant dynasty that really ran, uh, essentially trafficked and stolen artifacts. Right. So his parents had like airships, and they would transport these goods that were acquired through nefarious means, whether they were cultural artifacts or smuggling goods or what have you. And so they were flying over this particularly dense jungle, and a quaddle, a giant feathered serpent, showed up and basically destroyed one of the airships. Right, immediately kind of takes out the crew. Airship is broken in multiple pieces. It goes tumbling into the dense vinage and undergrowth,
Thanks for joining us,
cascading
Cobra.
down. Uh, Bykova, you know, cascading down into just the depths of this dark jungle, and this elf is sort of left there to its own devices. And while elves are incredibly long-lived, it was the elf was only 13 or 14 at the time, but we kind of grew up as like a cruel child, the kind of kid that would burn ants with a magnifying glass or like break relics just because he liked to see stuff broken. So sort of that elf survived in the jungle and started having these strange dreams of these otherworldly creatures, like these tusked, four-eyed bat creatures. And these dreams eventually led this elf to this lost city, where he sort of set up shop, got into a fight with some of the local creatures that lived there. Um, they took out one of his arms, right, and using wild magic, uh, and just sort of these prophetic dreams, it regrew the limb. The elf regrew the limb, and now has this sort of weird vine-like uh, arm kind of thing that it uses for long, grasping and attacks and all this other crazy stuff. And it's just this really, really sinister sorcerer who has taken over this lost city. And now, whenever adventuring parties kind of show up, uh, the sorcerer doesn't really engage as much as set traps and kind of make things very dangerous for adventurers who are there, because what the dreams are trying to do of these sort of creatures that are caught between spaces, they're trying to get the elf to free them so they can come back and take over their city, which has been reclaimed through countless aeons by the jungle. But the elf doesn't want to let them out. He doesn't want to free them, because if it does, then
Oh,
the
so,
elf no longer runs the lost city.
thanks for joining us, Heidi, and thanks for the raid.
Hi,
And
catch
happy
you later.
birthday.
Happy birthday. Um, so it has been, we've got this elf who's now, working against the things that gave it its magic, and so those things are calling to adventurers to sort of free them and cast down this hideous sorcerer. Now you can jump. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Um, that's a long stream. You guys are really doing the thing. That's rad. Um, if anybody wants to kind of check out the character sheets and the old vids and join us in the Discord, we will be, you are more than welcome to come check us out there, as we will be putting up character sheets for this gnome and all of the other Critical Draw creations. There's a link to the Discord in the chat for anybody who wants to join. We will be there. And we will typically hang out and have fun conversations as we go.
Indeed.
I am just getting some notes together for our little gnome friends. So as I start pulling together their character sheet, we can have that ready to go in the Discord by probably Wednesday.
Yeah, that's how long it took last time, I believe. So it's a good midweek update, and that's when we'll also upload it onto YouTube.
Oh man! All right. right, so I'm thinking a 5 day cycle. It gets its most powerful after 5 days. So 5 day summoning cycle um, makes the most sense for this little guy. I think we're gonna call him Colin, unless we have other suggestions. Anybody getting suggestions for this little plague-bearing gnome? This little engine of pestilence. You drop it in the chat. We are curious to see what you guys think. Are those stink clouds?
Oh yeah, he's fine.
Just oh, got it. Just a foul little creature.
Absolutely. Toxic fumes, scent markers.
Well, he's got to be out there being gross.
It can also lead to clues of what it's being fed,
Right.
and then like the DM can put any kind of hints into the smell, whatever. So like, say if something normally doesn't pair well with some kind of food, maybe that would be the thing to like kind of feed it or ward it off. Or give an idea of what kind of archetype of creature it's summoning.
I really like the giant flies. There was a 3.0 spell that I believe was like, I think it was giant vermin. I think is what it's called.
Mm.
Um, make giant flies, and I remember I had a player who was a cleric who used it to unbalance a couple of encounters. Um, and because of that, I had to come up with the conceit of there was just an entity known as the demon who had a bunch of scrying balls, and the demon would watch the party um, and then use any information that it gained from the nonsense that the party pulled to unbalance the game, and it would sell that information to like liches and dragons and various warlords and stuff um, to improve their dungeons, so that by the time the party got there, those tricks didn't work anymore. Uh, and this of course is when I had way more free time. As a game director, last year I wrote 12 books. It's a book a month, which is wild. But I wrote 12 books, and some of them publishing this year, a bunch of them publishing last year, some sort of waiting for other events to occur before they can come out because they're based on other IP. But lots of things coming. I've actually got a Kickstarter that should be dropping in May. The next Outer Seas book is out in May, which I'm very excited about.
Nice.
Horrors of the Deep is what that one's called. But I back in the day when I had much more free time, I was running 3 days a week, an average of 6 hour sessions, 3 days a week. Uh, so there was a lot more time for my parties to get up to shenanigans, and me having to come up with creative ways to curb said shenanigans. So uh, my amount of sessions that I run has dramatically dropped over the years. Right now, I think I run one game once a month, other than playtesting, because I have to do a fair amount of playtesting for books that we're putting out, or I work with RPG creators, artists, and game designers, and so there's a lot of times where I'm sitting at tables, kind of on VTT mostly, workshopping whatever they're coming up with to kind of figure out how best to bring it to market. But yeah, back in the day, man, the giant flies were a real problem. Like it created like a core memory in gaming for me where I was like, okay, so now there's unseen servants that will be placed in most rooms that contain food so that everything gets cleaned up and there's not a chance for these flies to to take root, and the maggots to become larvae to become flies, or however that process works. I'm not an entomologist, um, but yeah, that was a whole big deal. God, look at the little green stink lines. It's like a cloud of filth around him. I love it.
I think as well, obviously, it's not going to get drawn into here, but I think he has the ability to animate scarecrows.
Maybe that could be fun. Although I kind of think animated Scarecrow should be his like mortal enemy.
Oh, he
Like,
gets him to leave,
oh, got it.
so they
So
can
he'll
cause kind of like the mops in Fantasia. They can go cause problems in the town. So he doesn't use them in a combat sense. He just animates them to cause a problem as they leave the fields. And any other scarecrows planted in said fields will then come to life and leave.
I like that. There was a oh man, way back, AD&D. So I was in my teens, probably 13 or 14. Um, we were still a couple years out from 3.0, and I remember playing a sorcerer or playing a wizard. Um, I had mend as a spell, and I was playing as part of something called the RPGA, which was like you show up with a character, um, and you could play in any game that was run by the RPGA, provided that your like level was what it was supposed to be. It was a level that was like graded, but essentially like anybody could show up to an RPGA event with an RPGA sanctioned character and play in that game, right? So strangers could
Mm.
sit on a table together and play. And like there was a comic shop that was right next to the really delicious pizza place that ran this, and I practically lived in comic shops and gaming stores and off of pizza for the majority of my childhood. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the majority of my like teens and 20s, and that was where I existed. So I remember this RPGA character, this mage wizard character, had mending, and we were fighting something. Uh, it was like a sorcerer, or some sort of necromancer, cleric, or something. Some caster was wearing a scarecrow outfit and had a little like an army of scarecrows. And I think what ended up happening was that the person running the game just was kind of bored and didn't want to run the game or wanted to do something else. Um, because I said, like, oh well, they're wearing this potato sack, right, as like their shirt, so they have their arms out through these holes in the potato sack and their head out through this hole in the potato sack. So I remember casting, I was like, oh, I'm gonna cast, mending on this potato sack. It should logically cut their head and arms off, right?
Mm.
Knowing now that's not going to work. But as a child, I was like, that's totally cool. Like that'll work. That'll be awesome. And that's exactly how I sounded as a kid, right? Just like that. No, um, it was probably way more high pitched and hyper. Uh, and I remember them letting that happen, and it just sort of ending the game real early on, because we were supposed to like chase this caster, through the countryside and do all this nonsense. Um, and just being like enamored by the fact that such a mundane spell worked the way it worked and took out this caster in such a cool way at this table with like, and I'm a child sitting at a table with players who were in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, no parental supervision, no adult supervision whatsoever, just alone in the world, uh like a little sonic boom with dirt on it. So how I did snatched up or into horrible situations is beyond me. uh, but it was really that stuck with me for a while. I was like, wow, mending is so powerful, you could really do damage with it. And then finally getting into the weeds of the books and being like, no, I didn't use it correctly, but okay. um, but scarecrows have always in RPGs have stuck with me because of that. I always thought it was kind of rad. Just little characters dressed up as scarecrows, but never putting them in something that they could potentially lose their heads over. Um, yeah, RPGA was wild. They had certs. They had these things called certs, which were like paper. I don't know. They look like Monopoly money, but they had items on them. So it was like you had a cert that was like this is your wand of wonder. Or you had a cert that was like this is your bag of holding or your +1 longsword or whatever it was. Because that was the only way that you were allowed to have items that were magical was if you got it from an adventure, and like those were things you found as you played in the adventures. And you could go to like conventions and get special items that are only available at those conventions. Uh, and then the certs would be, you could trade them with other people. You'd have to like sign your name. The other person would sign their name. It was a whole thing. It was a really cool concept. Like, I'm sure they probably still have stuff that's exactly like it. It's like League of Play used to be.
Mm.
Um, but it was really neat. I remember being kind of enamored with it and the concept of like being able to play with anybody at a table. That was really fun.
Yeah, I remember in the game we was playing, I think it was the second. No, it was all of them, wasn't it? All the games we played were all set in the same world, in different time
Mm-hmm.
periods, or running alongside other games, which was cool.
Well, yeah, I world build. I mean, that's my favorite thing to do. Is like for the homebrew games that you guys were in. Yeah, all of it was in the same setting. That's been the same world setting that I've run in for 20 years. All my parties have sort of played in that world, and it's just got a giant sort of huge sprawling cosmology, and like all the civilizations are built out, and there's tons of new stuff that's kind of getting added. Um, and now that I'm publishing game content all the time, the Outer Seas is like its own new world, and so it's been really fun to go back to sort of the beginning of a world, right, and build something totally fresh and totally new. And so the Outer Seas is this. It's a hydropunk setting, so it's this oceanic world, or like 99.9999 blah 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 percent of the planet is covered in water. Very few spots of dry land anywhere, and the entire adventures are taking place on barges and sailboats and sunken cities, and these island. There's these cities called raft cities, which are driftwood and boats that can't really sail anymore because their masts are all jacked up, or just sort of anything that'll float. There's entire cities that are on the backs of Leviathan, the Clawing Chaos, which is a really fun, which is the first mega adventure that we published for it. The entire adventure takes place on the back of what is essentially a kaiju like hermit crab,
Nice.
and it's got a whole hex map. There's an entire hex map that's on the back of this creature, and so the way that it's set up is you bring a low level party in, and you can bring them in from any setting, because I try to write in a way that players can come in from any setting. So you get brought in, and you're sort of dropped into this world that you know nothing about. And that's okay, because everything you learn while you're going on this adventure. I'll drop a link to the Outer Seas page here. There's some of the books are up there now, and we have a new one, like I said, coming in May. So the Clawing Chaos, which is the first adventure, um, which Matthew Lillard said was rad, just in case, which I thought was super cool. Um, so we this first adventure has an entire hex map that's on the back of this giant leviathan, and there's all these different locations. There's like a sorcerer's tower to explore. There's like this jungle village that has some really interesting mystery things going on. There's like a Stonehenge kind of area that has a lot of cool like background lore. There's all these obelisks that are sort of jutting out of the shell of this creature, and each of those has like lore on it and like information about sort of the history of the world, and one of the species that's native to the world. And then there's a giant temple. Like there's a whole thing that takes place in a giant temple that's like sort of the heart of the story. That's a pun if you ever play the adventure. But there's a whole thing that's happening there. And what's wild, and the way that I wanted to create something from a storytelling perspective that players could read as like a coffee table book and be like, this is cool. There's a lot of new monsters in it, new items, new weapons, new spells. But there's also, a lot of lore that's in it for the Outer Seas that is going to be expanded upon in the core book. Um, and sort of what's happening in Clawing Chaos is going to come back later. Like there's other things, there's other books that will tie to how you wrap up the story. So there's a sort of an open ended what do you do here at the end of the story, and you know that's going to lead to some interesting things down the road. And then we do it, with the Black Coral Citadel, which is the next adventure that we did. That's all set inside of this sort of monolithic coral tower that was part of a giant group of monolithic coral towers that were around this sunken. It used to be an island, now it's sunk, and there's reasons for that, and it's all kind of explored in the story. But it's sort of what happens if you walk into the middle of two ghost factions, right? Two factions of spirits at odds with each other, and you're sort of alive and don't know anything about the world, and you're learning as you go. And then it's like, which of the sides do you side with, and what happens there? And that's actually part of a three-part, a campaign arc. So the next book for that is coming out towards the end of the year, Stranger Tides, and that'll be interesting. To kind of like evolve the world that way. All of these Outer Seas books are packed with lore because that's what I do. I world build. Um, so there's this. It's been fun to go back to sort of the seeds of a reality in a game setting and build it from scratch. Because I have been, like you said, running in the same campaign world that I created for decades. So it's been really cool to like see what that looks like and kind of tread new water. I would say tread new ground, but there's not really a lot of ground to tread here. Um, I mean, the new core book's going to have 32 playable. Right now, it's got 32 playable subclasses. Uh, we might cut that down a little bit as we get towards publication date because it'll publish early 2026. But that's a lot of new playable subclasses, a lot of different stuff that you can do with your playable character. It's gaming. That's what I love about it, and that's what I love about what we're doing here on Critical Draw. For those of you who are joining us, Matt and I are rolling. We rolled a d20. You can see those handy dandy charts on the side of your screen, and we got a gnomish summoner. And then the gnomish summoner, we've kind of, as we've been discovering this creature as we go, sort of spinning his story, we've decided that this is the type of creature that will enter into civilized areas, and the longer that they're there, the more sort of creatures that destroy plant life they summon. So what starts out as like some locusts or some sort of invasive worms eventually evolves into acid slime worms and dire moles and giant biting flies. Basically, could decimate entire farmsteads and ecologies before they wander off. And the gnome themselves isn't evil; is just sort of a living engine of destruction, not even sort of aware that they're causing the destruction in their wake.
Yeah, so
Um,
we're designing him in a way where you can use him in different like situations. So like you can come across towns and villages that have already been decimated by him, with no like real clues to the real source because of all the creatures it summons. Uh, and it could just be a random encounter, random thing you put in your world, or even like people are working behind the scenes, luring this creature into the towns to like get rid of the competition of other farmers and stuff like that.
and that's I think that's the fun of this kind of character is I mean, because evil's evil, right? Evil's there, maliciousness is there. Like you're gonna have your characters that are like that traditional. Uh, my name is Dark Heart Balthazar, and I am here to, I mean, we get more creative than that. Like there's some vile dragon that just lives for destruction, and all it's trying to do is break and burn and destroy everything, or some like cruel warlord who showed up and all it wants to do is raise a village to the ground and take all their gold and move on and do the same thing over and over again. Like that happens, and it's fun, and there's combat encounters, and it's whatever, and that's a good time. But that can be a good time. But evil that's sort of benign and just like a byproduct of something else, or destruction that harms everything. I mean, this thing harms an entire ecosystem, not maliciously or willfully. It just sort of does it as a product of existing. For me, is far more interesting because it really gives the player the agency, which I think is super important, to approach the situation and sort of devise their own solution to it. So what do? They figure out a food recipe that's going to make the gnome either satiate it so that it leaves, or gross it out so that it leaves. Right? They're gonna figure out a way to make the gnome leave the area that it's in. It can't be destroyed. Right? We know that it's impervious to damage and indestructible, and the gnome itself isn't going to attack you. But the creatures that summon as a byproduct of the gnome can very much do real damage and cause real harm. So like it's dealing with that while sort of using your skills as players to explore the setting and pick up rumors, because like Matt was saying earlier, it could be a situation where you're encountering rumors of this plague weeks in advance. You might be 5 or 6 sessions in advance before you come across something like this, and you realize like, oh no, there's a horrible plague and it's wiped out this entire farming community, and the people from that farming community are now sort of in a caravan to try to move on to greener pastures, pardon the pun, but move on to a place that hasn't been sort of destroyed. What is causing this? Oh, could it be some sort of blight that's been brought about by foul necromancers? Could it be some sort of weird corrupting demon that is walking the earth right now? No, it's just a gnome. It's just a gnome who, as through some cosmic byproduct of its existence, summons these really awful sort of creatures that just will devour any kind of plant life that they can get into their mouths, or mandibles, or proboscis, or whatever it may be. And then the party having to figure that out and how to deal with that in a non-combat way is really fun and interesting for the table. Because then it doesn't become a battle of dice and hit points. It's not a war game anymore. It's this lived in, baked in mystery, and creative problem solving. Because there's a ton of ways you could try to figure it out. I mean,
Yeah, I like the idea as well of possibly sending it into a big sleep.
yeah,
It's like we can't destroy it, so how do we put it into hibernation, basically?
it's it's like a tiny Tarrasque. It's just it's just sort of there. Um, I like the green. Green was a good choice. Definitely a good choice. I really want a full drawing of one of these little creepy things.
Oh, you never see them fall.
Oh, they creep me out so bad.
They're like when you get a floater in your eye.
Yeah,
If you try and look at it, you can only kind of see the cusp of it.
and then it's just gone. Man, those things are unnerving.
Let's bring the brightness of this hat down. Okay.
Oh, that's much better. I dig it. Look at that.
Sorry for myself being a lot quieter. I get into it and then forget to talk.
Oh no, you're golden. I'm catching my breath and having some coffee. Even though for me it's almost 5. Um,
We are rocking at
where
10 o'clock. Well, 1 minute to 10. So we'll probably go another half hour. If I don't manage to finish him up, I will finish him up off stream.
and then once these guys get finished, they will be over on our Discord. You'll be able to find character sheets, and the vids to uh, old episodes as we go. Um, and talk to us if you want, because we are around, always making some mischief.
Yeah. So as always
I'm
on
gonna.
Twitch, I think the VODs are available for a month, I believe, or until you do a certain amount. But every Wednesday, because that's when we plan to get the sheets finished, there'll be a YouTube upload as well.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh, those yellow eyes are just unnerving. Oh, they're purple. But I didn't see them as purple, but that makes total sense.
What did you see him as?
I don't know why I thought they were like orange or white. I kind of thought they were like, yeah, white kind of makes sense too. Kind of like a what are those things called? Radish, or like a potato, just a weird little tuberous thing. But purple works. Purple's totally fine. All I know is they're unsettling, and I will have stats for them because I already know what they're going to do. I don't like them, and they're going to be able to swarm, and that's going to be a ton of fun. And they're just going to really be nuisances. Um, and I think they are the final, sort of the most powerful thing that it summons is these things. Um, and these things just consume.
Like
Yeah, that's real. That's real creepy.
they burrow into the foundations.
Oh, well, and they eat anything organic, right? So like wooden tables. You're opening your pantries at home, and they're like in your pantry eating all of your food. Like they're in the larders eating all the food. They're in the pubs eating all the food. Like they're eating everything, eating the walls of log cabins. Like if you live in a village that has thatch roofs, right? You might have stone walls, but if your roof is made of wood or pitch, if it's not a stone roof, like they're gonna eat it. They're just consuming anything organic that they can put in the mouth, and they just sort of multiply.
I,
Uh,
I feel like they just being in their presence, food will rot around them, and they eat the
oh
rotten
yeah,
food.
yeah, for sure. Oh, they're a little weird. God, they're creepy. They're just disturbing little things. I really like them.
Thanking you all.
A little biter worm, and the blight flies, and then the giant three-eyed gnome or giant three-eyed mole, and then the worm. Yeah, I think that'll give us enough little creatures to sort of mess with. It's so slimy. Once again, everybody who's joined us, thank you so much. Matt and I are always really grateful to just have anybody who wants to hang out with us as we create these strange little creatures. Currently, we're working on this gnome summoner who has sort of become the avatar of blight and pestilence as we have evolved its story. We will by Wednesday have stats for it for you on our Discord. We've also sort of been discussing maybe creating some little one shot adventures or larger encounters based on these creatures that we might drop over on a Patreon. So if that's the kind of thing you might be interested in, let us know in the comments, or jump over on our Discord, join us on Discord, and let us know, or hit us up on socials because we are there as well. I am Anton the Storyteller, pretty much everywhere that you can find me. Matt is Art Monkey, pretty much anywhere you can
Art,
find him.
Art Monkey MG.
MG, pretty much everywhere you can find him. And we are constantly out and about making rad stuff. Matt has got an awesome upcoming Kickstarter about a devious little crow.
Yes,
Um,
the immortal crow bastard.
yeah, that should be coming soon. And I have a an Outer Seas, which is a hydropunk tabletop RPG setting adventure. I have a book coming out called The Horrors of the Deep, which is another one of our bestiaries for the Outer Seas. That's going to have some new monsters in it, lots of fun lore, some spells and such. And that'll be dropping in May. Um, and then in the long term, I have lots of fun books that we are currently working on. I just dropped a manuscript today for something called Beast and Botanicals that I'm working with one of the most talented artists I've ever known. She is a phenomenal designer. Um, and you can find her work on my Instagrams. I share her stuff often. That is Beast and Botanicals. You can find it in the link tree I dropped earlier in the feed. Um, Check that out if you want. That's our cottage core meets eldritch horror kind of vibe seed settings. Those are a ton of fun. And the Matt is always putting out some cool stuff. We have a fun little horror comic called Three Panel Horror that we're starting to talk about doing the second volume of soon. But that's a ton of fun. That's a great little book. You can get your hands on while supplies last there. Um,
Yes.
so we've always got stuff that we're cooking. And of course, we're trying to do this every week, unless, I mean, there's going to be some weeks we miss, unfortunately, because of holidays and things like that. But for the most part, we're going to try to hang out with you guys on Sundays and give you new monsters and creatures to add to your collection, a menagerie of monstrosities, if you will. Though sometimes we may roll things that are stalwart and good. It just happens to be these first two episodes we've come up with things that are a little bit more destructive and diabolical. Um, First episode is up on YouTube's, and you can go enjoy that there. Episode 2 will be up sometime this week. We'll let you know in the Discord when that drops. Tell your friends, do the thing that they say. What is it? Smash the bell, ding the button, and post to the doodads, all the good stuff. I'm way more computer literate than I'm making myself out to be right now. It's just sometimes.
I think it's just a follow on Twitch.
Yeah, we appreciate a follow and a share, uh, and whatever you want to give us, we appreciate it because we really love doing the stuff that we do. Um, so it's a good time. Um, I think that was the right choice. That almost looks like a Pokemon, like very close to resembles, like color scheme wise, very much Pokemon.
Well, yeah, it's got to have a different otherworldly color scheme.
Yeah, very unhinged. And the slime that you added to the green worm is just perfect.
Yeah, I think eventually as we do this more, I will look into getting some stuff so I can hook it up to my iPad because I do prefer drawing in Procreate. It's just got like a nicer, cleaner look about it, and easier to then export time lapses of drawings.
It makes total sense. I mean, I think we're just, you guys who joined us in these beginning kind of days, you're just seeing sort of us figuring out all of the bits and bobbles and kinks of the process as we go. And just like we're super grateful for you hanging out with us, we are really just, this is a reason for us to hang out with each other. Matt and I are both very busy people. He's the father of a wonderful kiddo, and the husband of a wonderful wife, and I have my own awesome wife that I get to spend time with, and we're both very busy in creative pursuits, across the board, doing all sorts of stuff. So this is a chance that we get to kind of sit together and tell stories and come up with wacky creatures and fun NPCs and just sort of vibe. Um, and we hope that you guys are having fun with us, because we certainly are enjoying the heck out of this process. We talked after episode one, and it's just a ton of fun to get to sit here and vibe and do this. And you tuning in and watching us go gives us the opportunity to make these fun little things. And it's validating. I mean, really, it's awesome. It's awesome to be seen.
Absolutely.
It's
And I think maybe once a month, because on the Discord, because I think it'd be the best way to do it. We do have a dice roll chat, so I think once a month we will do some quick fire sketches and have you guys roll some dice for us. Uh, so get your cameras ready to film your dice rolls, because that's the only condition, is that it's a video dice roll, so we know you're not fudging them. Uh, and then we can quickly draw up some stuff, come up with a little tiny backstory. Uh, Depending how many dice rolls we get, they'll probably just be sketches, and probably maybe colour them up later on. But I think it'd be cool to get you guys in on some of the dice rolls at some point as well.
100%. And we've noticed that numbers is not really dropped too much since we've started. So, for those of you who are sticking with us for the long run, we super appreciate you hanging out with us as we create these calamitous creatures of chaos. That was some fun alliteration. So it's a good time. Yeah, I think have we decided? Are we calling him Colin? We decided that's going to be his name.
I think so. That's what I've called the file.
All right. So then, yeah, this is our gnome summoner Colin, sort of a little engine of pestilence and destruction. Um, when he arrives to towns, it's typically because someone has figured out what food will summon him, whether by accident or design. Sometimes those who are nefarious in nature may create his favorite food, um, and they will summon him. Colin, it's Colin, not Colin. They will summon him, uh, and he will show up and sow chaos and pestilence. Uh, the longer that he is in a location, the more powerful the things that he summons become. Now, he himself is indestructible, and he doesn't really know he's doing anything wrong. He's just sort of wandering about. But just his very nature causes creatures to be summoned. And these creatures do untoward destruction to plant life and organic life in the area. Um, it can decimate entire countrysides and farming villages, um, just due to the nature of the creatures that he's calling forth. Um, so he becomes quite the problem for like farming communities, um, and that's why villages have festivals. Like, you ever wonder why a small village in the middle of nowhere has like a pickled bean and rutabaga festival? It's because creatures like this detest those things. And once they figure that out, they know that if they have a festival that celebrates it, it might keep him from showing back up and destroying their crops. So, it's to ward off Colin, um, from coming and creating just all sorts of nonsense and destruction. Um, Anne Marie has joined us. Very excited. Earlier when I was talking about Beast and Botanicals, She is that wildly talented artist on that project, and she is now with us in the chat. So big ups to you, my
Hello.
friend. Appreciate you coming up. Um, you the best. So the little creatures that are hiding in Colin's beard and under his hat are just horrific monstrosities that will eat any organic life, but their very nature rots organic material. Any kind of plant life, they start to break down into sort of festering detritus, and then they feed upon it. Um, which doesn't sound like a huge deal until you start thinking about all of the food in your pantry. And if you live in some hillside hamlet and your roof is made of, thatched hay and leaves, all of a sudden your roof is caving in because these little creatures are now eating it. Or the walls of your wooden cabin are starting to mold and fall apart because these creatures are just devouring your kitchen table, your chairs, anything wooden or plant made of natural fibers is getting devoured by these things. They really just become a huge problem.
I think
Uh,
as well, once all that kind of organic material is gone, any person in the vicinity just starts decaying. You know, like that film Life Force with the vampires
yeah,
from space. Just
they start drawing the very like the food in your stomach. The very fiber of your being starts to waste away. Um, Nothing will be left in their wake, except for like stone and metal. And they don't care for anything riches wise, so they're not stealing your money. Like they don't care about that. Uh, they don't care about those sorts of things. They're there to consume resources, um, which is really unhinged when you think about it. This dire mole has sort of a third eye that is like a little lantern beacon. It probably is also going to have some sort of gaze attack. Uh, like a withering gaze or something. Because I like the concept of sort of rot with everything this thing does. There's like some rot tied to it. It's looking real good, Matt.
thank you.
We're gonna probably be here on stream for another 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, probably a little bit
Um,
less than that, I think, because I'm almost done.
oh, delightful. So we'll wrap when Matt finishes it up. Once more, we really want to thank you guys all for joining us here. Again, you can find us across the social spaces. You can jump on our Discord and join us there. Um, our links are at the bottom of the screen if you go looking for us in those spaces. And then there's plenty of links through the body of the conversation here on stream for the different stuff that we've talked about. And we will next week, the 20th, I believe we'll be back, right, Matt?
Yes, Easter Sunday, I believe it is.
All right. So if anybody is hanging out, we should be here in the studio doing our thing, provided nothing comes up. We'll let you know on the socials if anything goes wild or in the Discord. That's typically where you'll hear stuff first from us.
Yeah, since it is going to be Easter Sunday, I reckon we put some kind of Easter spin on what we do next week.
That's fair. That's fair. The egg thief. We'll figure it out when we get there. Whatever it'll be, Pickles will hate it. Maybe you'll learn more about Pickles next time. Oh, that gnome is coming together.
Leave that background, that hex off. Yeah, I think maybe a few blemishes on his skin.
He looks ready to roll.
And if anyone's wondering, yes, this guy is butt naked.
He is, but he's got enough caked on filth and his beard um, makes it so that he is more than adequately covered for those with delicate sensibilities. Totally fine.
Oh no,
Um,
the back hair very conveniently parts at the
oh,
lower back, and if anyone gazes upon the ruckus or tuckus, they have to make a Constitution saving throw,
got it,
and
got it.
they're either allured or disgusted.
It just depends.
Yeah,
Just depends.
depends what he's been eating.
Uh, oh, that's horrible. So yes, this is our befouled little gnome summoner. Stats will be coming soon. Again, we're really grateful for everybody who's hanging out with us. Thank you so much. It has been a blast to make yet another chaotic little creature with you on episode. What is episode 2 of Critical Draw?
It is, and I think that is Colin and his Diamole and Direfly done.
Delightful. Great job, Matt.
Thank you very much. It's been fun building this character with you. So to recap, this is Colin, the summoner gnome. He just summons basically pestilence and plague everywhere he goes, devouring live crops, livestock as well if it gets that bad. And you just can't kill him. But you can find ways to deal with him. You just have to be smart about it and do some investigation.
And I think that's where we'll leave it. Oh, I rolled a 1. Natural 1 on a d20.
Ah, you die.
Again? Happens all the time.
Thanks again for joining us, everybody. We will be back next Sunday for another episode of Critical Draw. Thanks for
Thanks,
stopping by.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.